Begin with pawn to d4, followed by pawn to d5, and then pawn to c4. This setup is known as the Queen's Gambit. Now let's explore what happens if black chooses to capture the pawn. By playing pawn to e3, we prepare to regain control using the light-squared bishop. The best approach for black is to ignore this extra pawn and concentrate on piece development. However, if black insists on keeping the material advantage, pawn to b5 is an option. In response, we strike with pawn to a4, directly challenging the support. At this stage, black has a few defensive choices. Playing pawn to a6 is ineffective because after exchanges, you can simply capture the rook. Now, what if black tries bishop to d7 instead? After the trades, you can place the knight on c3, putting pressure on the bishop. If the bishop retreats, it may seem like black is holding steady, since the bishop shields the pawn, and the knight reinforces the bishop. However, white has a decisive tactic here. Can you spot the winning move? Yes, the winning move is queen to f3. Now, the knight is stuck because moving it would leave the bishop undefended. That means pawn to c6 is black's only reasonable move. But now, the knight is overloaded with defensive duties. So we can unleash the killer move, rook captures bishop, and look at this. After knight recaptures, we deliver a check. Surprisingly, the only legal move for black is queen to d7. We then grab the rook. Again, blocking with the queen is the only defense. So we retreat momentarily, but this time we also capture the knight. In just 3 moves, we have completely demolished black's queenside. This position is clearly winning for white. Now, let's rewind. If, in this position, black defends with pawn to c6, the same idea applies. Captures, captures, and once again, queen to f3 attacks the rook, ultimately forcing black to lose either the knight or the bishop. Now, in the Queen's Gambit accepted variation, let's see what happens if black plays wisely and simply focuses on natural development. Knight to f6, bishop captures, and many black players prefer to fianchetto their dark squared bishop before castling kingside. So, after pawn to g6, we develop with knight to f3. Now, when black places the bishop on g7, we strike with a brilliant move, queen to a4, delivering check. At this point, black has multiple ways to block the check, but almost all of them lead to trouble, except for one. Let's start by examining the most common responses. Many of you might consider bishop to d7, a natural-looking move that also attacks the queen, but then we simply slide over to queen to b3, attacking 2 key targets at once. Even if black castles, we can ramp up the pressure on the king side with knight to e5. So clearly, bishop to d7 is not an ideal defense. Now, what if black chooses knight to c6 instead? Well, once again, knight to a5 comes in strong, hitting both the knight and the f7 pawn. If black castles, we can simply trade knights and walk away with a free pawn. And if black tries to defend with the bishop, we have a crushing tactic, a fork on the queen and rook, winning material. Okay, let's rewind. What other options does black have? What if black plays knight to d7 instead? Well, now you have a stunning bishop sacrifice. After the king captures, you follow up with knight to g5, delivering check. If the king moves to e8, then it gets completely trapped, just like this. If the king steps to f8, we have a beautiful fork, and the queen is lost. And if the king moves to g8, then we have a forced checkmate in 4 moves. Can you spot it? Here we go. First, queen to c4, delivering check. The only safe square for the king is f8. Now, the immediate threat is queen to f7, checkmate. So, black tries to block, but we simply capture. He blocks again, but this time we finish the game with a crushing checkmate. All right, now what if black blocks with the knight instead? Well, in that case, once again, you have the same brilliant bishop sacrifice, followed by knight to g5, delivering check. If the king retreats, then we get the same winning idea as we saw earlier. Even though black has the option of playing king to f6, the position is already disastrous. The king is completely exposed, so we just need to hunt it down and finish the game. Stockfish evaluates this as a massive 6-point advantage for white. All right, let's rewind. What other ways can black try to block the check? What about queen to d7? Well, once again, we have the bishop check. If the king captures, then we unleash a stunning knight check, forking the king and queen. So instead, the king will be forced to step to would e8 or f8, losing the right to castle. At that point, we can simply develop with bishop to b3 or even queen to b3, and white is in complete control. All right, now the only move that might look reasonable for black is pawn to c6. There are no immediate traps here, but white is still completely fine. And that's the best part about this trap. Even if black defends well, white still gets a great position. If black doesn't play perfectly, white gains a strong advantage. Now, on to our next trap, the Slav defense. After some natural moves, we trade pawns, leaving black with an isolated pawn. This is the perfect moment for queen to b3, attacking both weak pawns. Common replies, queen to b6 and pawn to b6, are both mistakes. Can you find black's best move here? Surprisingly, the best move for black is to retreat the bishop, even though it looks awkward. Now let's check the common responses. If queen to b6, don't trade queens, first capture the pawn. If black takes the knight, recapture with the queen. And if black takes the queen, don't take back immediately. First, play knight to f6, delivering check, then recapture. Now the second most common move is pawn to b6. Can you find white's crushing move here? It's pawn to e4. You activate the bishop's diagonal, preparing to attack from both sides. If black captures, play knight to e5, threatening checkmate. The only defenses are pawn to e6 or bishop to e6, but either way, bishop to b5. Delivering check follows. Black must block with a knight, after which bishop to g5 leaves both knights pinned and struggling to protect each other. Eventually, both knights fall, and white continues the attack. Even if black captures with the knight or bishop, the result is the same. After exchanges, white gains a decisive attack. In the Slav defense, if black develops this bishop, which is very likely, white can dominate right from the opening. Now let's look at another trap in the queen's gambit declined. After d4, d5, c4, black plays the common response, e6. The game continues with natural development, knight to c3, knight to f6, bishop to g5, bishop to e7, a3, and black castles. We develop the other knight, knight to b7, then trade central pawns. After black recaptures, we activate our bishop. Black places their rook on the semi-open file, and we mirror the move. Black's c6 solidifies the center and stops knight to b5. This is a typical setup in the queen's gambit, and now it's time to set the trap. First, we castle. After black plays h6, attacking the bishop and creating space for the king, we retreat the bishop. Many players then try to trade off the bishop pair by playing knight to h5, aiming to exchange it for the bishop. But this is a mistake. Can you spot the best move for white? The brilliant move is knight takes on d5. Black can't capture the knight because bishop to c7 traps the queen. So black can't take the knight, and even if they capture the bishop, white recaptures with the knight, gaining a healthy central pawn advantage. Now let's move on to our next trap, the Alban counter gambit. Here's how the main line goes. After d takes on e5, pawn to d4, knight to f3 attacks the pawn, and knight to c6 defends it. Then g3 plans to fianchetto the bishop, followed by bishop to g4, attacking the knight and indirectly the pawn. After bishop to g2, queen to d7 aims to exchange bishops. Now, castling seems like the obvious move, but to surprise your opponent, try pawn to h3. This often confuses black, and most players opt to take the knight. This allows white to capture the free pawn on b7. A common response from black is to castle queenside, defending the pawn with the king and preparing to activate the rook along the semi-open file. Black has fallen into your trap. Can you find the winning move? The decisive move is bishop to g4, pinning the queen. But what if black blocks with pawn to f5? Should you capture with the bishop? That won't work because black can simply take with the queen. So, what's the correct response? You capture the pawn en passant, reactivating the pin. Now, there's no escape for the queen. That wraps up our top 5 Queen's Gambit traps. I hope these strategies help you gain an edge in your games. If you found this video useful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more chess tips and tricks. Thanks for watching.